नमस्कार, मैं हूं श्वेता रंजन। आप देख रहे हैं गवर्नेंस नाउ का खास कार्यक्रम चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस और आज का मुद्दा हमारा है POW यानी युद्ध बंदियों से जुड़ा हुआ, प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर से जुड़ा हुआ। तो आज के इस एपिसोड में हम बात करेंगे उन प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर की जो कि 1971 में माने जाते हैं कि पाकिस्तान के कब्जे में हैं, उस समय से पाकिस्तान के कब्जे में हैं और अब तक वो भारत यानी अपने वतन वापस नहीं लौट पाए हैं, जिनके लिए तमाम कोशिशें की गई हैं, तमाम प्रयास किए गए हैं, लेकिन उनको अपने देश वापस नहीं लाया जा सका है। किसी भी युद्ध में सैनिकों के साथ चार तरह की घटनाएं जो हैं वो संभावित मानी जाती हैं। या तो सैनिक विजय हो और जीत की सांस ले, या फिर वो जख्मी हो जाए, या फिर वो शहीद हो जाए, देश के लिए कुर्बान हो जाए, या फिर दुश्मन देश के हाथों पकड़ा जाए, दुश्मन मुल्क के हाथों पकड़ा जाए, उनकी गिरफ्त में आ जाए। लेकिन मैं जिस युद्ध की बात कर रही हूं उसमें जीत के साथ सैनिकों के लापता होने की दास्तां भी है, उनके निशान भी हैं और जो उनके परिवार वालों को आज भी सालता है। कहां गए वो सैनिक? उनका कोई सुराग अब तक क्यों नहीं लगा? क्या वो आज भी दुश्मन देश की कैद में है? आधी सदी यानी 5 दशक आप कहिए कि गुजर चुके हैं, उनकी वतन वापसी नहीं हो पाई है। इसी पर आज हम बात करेंगे और इस पर बातचीत करने के लिए हमारे साथ एक्सपर्ट पैनल है। सबसे पहले मैं स्क्रीन पर लाना चाहूंगी कर्नल NN भाटिया सर। आपने युद्ध बंदियों के लिए बहुत काम किया है। मिसिंग इन एक्शन जो सोल्जर्स माने जाते हैं कि पाकिस्तान की जेलों में है, उनके लिए आपने बहुत काम किया है। और साथ ही साथ हमारे साथ जुड़ रही है चंद्र, सुता, डोगरा। आपका भी स्वागत है डोगरा जी। शी इज अक्लेम्ड ऑथर और मिसिंग इन एक्शन नाम से आपकी किताब है जो कि काफी प्रचलित है। और साथ ही है हमारे साथ कर्नल रवि, राजन। आपका भी स्वागत है कर्नल राजन। बातचीत का सिलसिला आगे बढ़ाएं उससे पहले आइए आपके सामने इस मुद्दे से जुड़ी तस्वीर पर जो धूल जम गई है उसको थोड़ा हटाएं और तस्वीर को थोड़ा साफ करके आपको बताएं कि ये पूरा मसला है क्या।
1971 में भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच हुई जंग के बाद 54 सैनिकों और अधिकारियों को मिसिंग इन एक्शन या फिर किल्ड इन एक्शन घोषित किया गया। ऐसा माना जाता है कि ये सैनिक आज भी जिंदा हैं और पाकिस्तान की अलग अलग जेलों में कैद हैं। इन 54 लापता में 30 आर्मी के और 24 एयरफोर्स के जवान माने जाते हैं। ऐसा माना जाता है कि वेस्टर्न फ्रंट पर लड़ते हुए इन सैनिकों को गिरफ्तार किया गया था। भारत यह मानता रहा कि उन्हें पाकिस्तान ने अपनी जेलों में कैद रखा है। हालांकि पाकिस्तान इन दावों को खारिज करता रहा, लेकिन सैनिकों के परिवार वालों ने कई बार ऐसे सबूत पेश किए हैं जिनसे सैनिकों के जिंदा होने की बातें सामने आई हैं। इन मुद्दों से जुड़े कई अहम सवाल हैं जिनके जवाब आज इस कार्यक्रम में हम तलाशने की कोशिश करेंगे। सवाल नंबर 1, क्या गायब लोग वास्तव में युद्ध के दौरान शहीद हुए? सवाल नंबर 2, क्या भारत के पास यह साबित करने के लिए सबूत है कि वो सैनिक युद्धबंदी बनाए गए? सवाल नंबर 3, क्या इन्हें भविष्य में सौदेबाजी के लिए इस्तेमाल करने के लिए पाकिस्तान में अनिश्चितकालीन नजरबंदी में रखना चुना गया? सवाल नंबर 4, क्या जिनेवा कन्वेंशन का उल्लंघन करते हुए पकड़े जाने के बाद पाकिस्तान में इन्हें बेरहमी से प्रताड़ित किया गया? सवाल नंबर 5, क्या इन्हें वापस भारत को सौंपना पाकिस्तान को शर्मिंदगी जैसा लग रहा था? सवाल नंबर 6, क्या युद्ध की जीत में भारत सरकार ने जवानों को भुला दिया? सवाल नंबर 7, युद्ध बंदियों के अधिकारों की सुरक्षा के लिए राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कोई तंत्र स्थापित क्यों नहीं किया गया?
मिस डोगरा, आपसे शुरू करते हैं। You have written the book. A lot of research goes in writing a book. You have worked hard. How do you look at it? The entire thing इतने लंबे समय से लिंगर ऑन हो रहा है। 71 की लड़ाई, जिनेवा कन्वेंशन से लेके शिमला अग्रीमेंट, एवरीथिंग जैसे किसी का कोई अस्तित्व नहीं है, वजूद नहीं है। What is your take on it?
See, when I started researching the book, there were lots of streams where one had to look at. But the primary question which I encountered was that why has nothing been done about these prisoners, whether it is 54 or it is 15 or 83, the figures keep varying. Although in Parliament in 1979, the first time the list came out, it had 40 names on it. And then by about 1983 or so, more names were added and वो 54 हो गए. By the way, presently the number of missing prisoners, which includes missing defense personnel, which includes peacetime disappearances, is about 83 at present. So, to come back to the 1971 war and what happened after that, one of the major reasons which I identified was that we were bound by the Shimla Agreement, which said that all our disputes with Pakistan have to be resolved bilaterally without any interference from a third party, which is what prevented India from going to the United Nations or to the International Court of Justice, or maybe use any other third party as a mediator in between to get this issue resolved. Because India was always fearful that if we took this issue to the international forums, then Pakistan would do something similar with Kashmir, and that would be very embarrassing. There would be, human rights. There are lots of human rights violations, and there would be a scrutiny of those. So that was the primary reason, and this is documented. I mean, this is not something which just came out. This came out in research. There are affidavits from the Ministry of External Affairs produced in courts which say this, which I have produced in my book also. So this is the main reason why we couldn't move beyond bilateral मीटिंग्स कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर लेवल पे भी मीटिंग हो रही है, फॉरेन मिनिस्टर लेवल पे भी हो रही है, और पाकिस्तान एक कोरा जवाब दे देता है कि हमारे पास तो है ही नहीं है वो. So what do you think?
मिस डोगरा, अभी आपको एक मिनट रोकना चाहूंगी. कर्नल भाटिया, जैसे मिस डोगरा ने कहा,
issue is,
नहीं,
how do we say that there are 54 POWs, Indian POWs in Pakistan? How we have got into this figure? How do we know this is the exact figure? When I started my search on this, when I started my search on this particular issue, we started with 84. Then somebody said, some people said it is 74. And then there were lot many people of 65 war still found missing, and they were also clubbed into the POWs. It is Minister of State for External Affairs, Mr. Kundu, in 1977, he stated in the parliament that there are 54 Indian POWs of 71 war which are in Pakistan. I challenge this figure again. Where is Sipahi Dharampal Singh Gone of 46, who was captured in Bangladesh during Liberation War? His name is not there. POW is a POW, whether he is a 65 war or 71 war. There is Captain Bhatia of 1997. He was captured in Kutch.
The question is not कि कितने number में है. The numbers could be any. It could be 300. It could be 200. It could be 84, 85, whatever. The question is not that, because जिनके लिए सबूत मिले हैं शायद उनके नाम ही उस लिस्ट में है. सवाल तो ये है कि हम अपने लोगों को, अपने डिफेंस पर्सनल को वापस क्यों नहीं ला पाए. इसमें जैसे मिस डोगरा ने कहा कि कहीं ना कहीं अगर हम इसको यूएन तक ले जाते, इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस तक ले जाते, तो कहीं कश्मीर का मुद्दा आ जाता, तो क्या ये इंटायरली एक पॉलिटिकल इशू बन जाता है?
I'll answer this question. First of all, the biggest mistake was done that we released all the POWs of Pakistan captured in Bangladesh, around 93,000. I was there in the Bangladesh war myself. At that time, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi should have forced Mr. Bhutto to agree upon following requirement. First of all, we should have solved our border dispute with Pakistan once forever. That this is a line, please accept it. Secondly, we would have sorted out the river waters, problem. What we are facing now, the rivers which are flowing from India to Pakistan, and there's a dispute on that. Issues of minorities, that we should have resolved. Ran of Kutch, we should have resolved the boundary into that. and then only released the Pakistani prisoners, ensuring all our POWs which are in Pakistan captured either in 65 or 71 or in Bangladesh, anywhere, they are released. It was not done. In the talks, only MEA was involved and the Ministry of Defense was not involved. If the Ministry of Defense was involved and Sam Bahadur was asked, he would have said, these are our requirements. If these are met, and then only we'll release the Pakistani POW. Unfortunately, we failed to do that.
So,
May I
Colonel,
say something?
yeah, Colonel Rajan, I was going to come to you. My question is, so do we say that similar agreement in 1972, there was a clear bilateral snafu on both the sides?
There are
Well, I mean, there's
bilateral.
one way to look at
The main
it.
thing is we are bounded by Geneva Convention. But what happens when the Pakistan says we don't have? When General Musharraf came, I also went to Agra with the hope of putting this point. He said, I'm sorry, we have no prisoners. And he asked for a delegation to go. And delegation also went there. Few people who kith and kin are the POW, they went there. But it was a conducted tour.
Colonel Rajan, आप कुछ कह रहे थे?
I was addressing a different point of view about the Simla agreement, and was there a mess up there or not? Now, as far as the Simla agreement is concerned, it seems to be a very cut and dried thing that we have got 93,000 prisoners of theirs, and हमारे 2,300 odd prisoners हैं. So why wasn't there a clean swap? And that would have been the end of it. That is a very simplistic way of looking at it, because at that time we had to sort out the Bangladesh issue first before we had to sort out the prisoners. Now we are talking about prisoners right now. The point was, as far as I know, and whatever is recorded, that Mrs. Indira Gandhi as the Prime Minister took a conscious decision that we have gone into this war to sort out a particular problem. Let us resolve that particular problem first, and then we will get to the peripheral aspects of things. Now, the first thing was to get Mujibur Rahman out from West Pakistan and get him into Bangladesh, or what is now Bangladesh, or East Pakistan then. And for him to get the country going. Now, that was number one priority, and that was what was sorted out in the Shimla Accord. Bhutto went in and said, we want our 93,000 prisoners back. We will give you Mujibur Rahman. So that was it. Now, that was a geopolitical situation at that time. The MEA decides and interacts with whoever has to be interacted with on the national and international stage. The MOD or the army, we can sort of keep saying that these are our soldiers, these are our men, these are our brothers who are prisoners here. We want them back. The Indian army does not leave anybody behind on the battlefield, whether dead or alive. We always get our men back. So we want our prisoners back. Now, but the MEA decides that they want Mujibur Rahman back, etc., etc.
It's a very valid point raised by you, Colonel Rajan, that the focus shifted, and let's not go back to what we could have done and what we could change. But Ms. Dogra wants to say something. I had another question for her.
I just want to add to what Colonel Rajan has said. He's right, the focus did shift. But here we have to realize that wars are actually politics. I mean, you have to fulfill a political goal, which is why wars are fought. So this war was fought to liberate Bangladesh, and it would have been absolutely catastrophic if after the war Bangladesh did not become an independent nation and did not take its rightful place as a sovereign nation on the world stage. That was the primary priority before the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and she was prepared to do anything to achieve that, because just fighting a war was not enough. It had to. So there were many factors. Release of Mujibur Rahman being one. The other was recognition of Bangladesh by the rest of the world, including Pakistan. And may I add over here that it was not the 90, well, she did bargain. You know, a lot of people say, like Colonel Bhatia is also saying, why were our 93,000, why did we not hold them back? She did bargain for that, but she released those 93 in return for the life of Mujibur Rahman. Our POWs were not on the scene at that point of time, may I add. The issue of POWs was not even on the table during the
Yes.
Shimla conference. It was not even
It was even
discussed.
kept on the table, right?
Our POW. Now, Pakistan had declared that we also need to understand it's not, POWs on the Western Front, POWs on the Eastern Front. Most of these 96,000 were those from the Eastern Front, then East Pakistan, and later on Bangladesh. So, a lot of them were civilians. All of them were not army men. Most of them were civilians. There were children, there were women, there were naval officers, there were all kinds of people who were part of that 92,700 and something. Now, our defense personnel were mostly captured on the Western Front, and Pakistan had declared 616 of them. And these 616, they had captured from the Western Front, and we had captured roughly about 535 or so of Pakistani prisoners from the Western Front. So वो मिला के 92,700 and something जो figure हुआ था total. Now, our 616, which were declared by Pakistan and informed, the Red Cross was informed about it, and all international agencies, they came back home during the normal course of repatriation at the end of 1972. That the missing defense personnel were not admitted to by Pakistan. They were not declared that these are there. So there is a suspicion within the Indian government for a long time that they were held as security prisoners. Security prisoners means under the category of spies. Now, if you put somebody in a category of spy, then you can get around the Geneva Conventions. That was one way to avoid. Otherwise, if you categorize a person as a POW or a prisoner of war, तो आपको वापस करना पड़ेगा. Otherwise, there will be international condemnation, etc. So this is how Pakistan got around the provisions of the Geneva Convention by simply recategorizing these people as security prisoners. And this is something which the Indian establishment knew for many years कि हमारे ये जो लोग हैं ये POW की category. So when Pakistan used to come in bilateral meetings at prime ministerial level, at foreign minister level, foreign secretary level, and say we don't have any POWs, they were technically right, because they were not categorized as POWs.
कर्नल भाटिया, आपने इस पर बहुत काम किया है, तो क्या भारत के पास ये सबूत है साबित करने के लिए कि जो डिफेंस पर्सनल हैं वो युद्ध बंदी बनाए गए? हालांकि जो आपके पास टिप्स हैं, कहीं से कोई लेटर आया या कहीं से कोई नोट आया, उसके आधार पर अगर आप कहते हैं कि चाहे मेजर अशोक सूरी का केस हो या तमाम और भी ऐसे हैं जहां से आप टिप्स के आधार पर कहते हैं कि नहीं वो पाकिस्तान की जेलों में हैं, बट कोई सबूत है ऐसा जिसको आधार बनाकर उनको वापस लाने की कवायद एक बार फिर से चालू की जा सके?
There are a lot of proof. There was one Mr. Awais Sheikh, a very dear friend of mine. He had met many of our prisoners. He had met Surjit. He had met so many other people, and he was a witness. He was chased so badly that he took asylum in Sweden, and unfortunately, he died there. So there are many reports that there are people. It came in various newspapers, in the magazines, US magazines. There are, unfortunately, there were no TV those days. Otherwise, you could have had recordings of TVs. But the problem is the other party should listen, and how forcefully we are able to project a, problem. Probably no government is taking that big an initiative to resolve this issue.
So, Ms. Dogra, do you think something like the transfer of prisoner agreement or some would work? कुछ इस तरह से हम काम कर सकते हैं?
Yes, actually, अब बहुत साल बीत गए हैं. So even if some of them are still alive, let us assume they would be in their 80s or so. Although in around 1980s or so, एक दो attempts कोशिशें हुई थी to exchange prisoners. कि अगर हम कुछ अपने उनके कुछ रिलीज कर देते हैं और वो हमारे, तो इस तरह का बैक चैनल नेगोशिएशंस चले थे, लेकिन वो सिरे नहीं चढ़े क्योंकि जो रेशो था उसके ऊपर सहमति नहीं बन पाई थी. We wanted, Pakistan wanted one, they said we will release one and you release 3 of ours, क्योंकि वो कह रहे कि आपके पास ज्यादा हैं हमारे, और हमने कहा था नहीं, इक्वल 1:1 रेशो हुआ जाए. तो इसके पीछे सहमति नहीं हुई, तो द मैटर जस्ट फेल थ्रू एंड फिर दोबारा कभी ये उठा नहीं. And unfortunately somebody should have taken it forward and चलो given them, even if they wanted more दे देते, because हमारे तो वहाँ पर pilots हैं, trained pilots, 22 of them suppose a part of that list. How many of them actually survived or whatever, but still, so it seems as if, you know, we were very conjuice and we were very, we did not approach this issue with great seriousness, कि अगर वो ज्यादा मांग भी रहे थे तो हम दे देते, एटलीस्ट हमारे आदमी आ तो जाते वापस. अब छोटी छोटी चीजों में अब बार्गेनिंग शुरू कर दिया कि नहीं हम एक के बदले एक ही देंगे, इस तरह की चीजों में की वजह से बात वहीं की वहीं खत्म हो गई. So that's very unfortunate. Here it was a matter of lives. It was not, you know, कोई गाजर मूली जिसके पीछे हम बार्गेनिंग करते हैं, हैगलिंग करते हैं. So now probably it's quite late. But however, अगर रिश्तेदारों से पूछा जाए या even other people who have been involved in this issue, there is this great demand कि there should be some closure on this issue, in the sense कि अगर मान लो let us assume मेजर अशोक सूरी, जिन्होंने वहां से चिट्ठी भी भेजी थी, 2 चिट्ठियां भी भेजी हैं, कि at least even if he is no more, we need to know and his family needs to know how did he die. और there is also some evidence कि कुछ हमारे जो युद्धबंदी थे वो ओमान और इस तरह की कंट्रीज में भी, गल्फ की तरफ भी भेजे गए हैं, तो क्या वो वहां पर रिहैबिलिटेट हो गए हैं? So we need to get to the bottom of it, even if they are not alive. The families need to know.
So,
there has to be a
Colonel Rajan, we had lost the connection with you, and now you're back. तो अगर हम पाकिस्तान हमें उन युद्ध बंदियों को कुछ समय के बाद अगर सौंप भी देता, तो आपको क्या लगता है ये उसके लिए एक शर्मिंदगी जैसा होता? ये भी एक वजह हो सकती है जिस कारण से नहीं दिया गया.
आपका जो प्रश्न है, to an extent it is right, because if country B, say Pakistan, has not followed the Geneva Conventions like they should have, and as per the all the articles, etc., especially Article 3, and then there are 71 other articles which lay down exactly क्या करना है, कैसे करना है, कब करना है, क्यों करना है. Now, if you haven't followed all that, and that happens only with a very, very professional army. Now, if a very, very professional army is not going to follow that, the Geneva Conventions, then there is reason to be ashamed of what they have done. Now, there could be 2 or 3, scenarios what happen in a war. The first thing is when you are, you're missing, you're either missing presumed killed, or you're missing presumed captured, or you're, missing presumed deserted. Now, if your own documentation is not up to the mark and it is not corroborated by the opposing country, the detaining nation like it's called, then there's a problem, because A does not equal to B. Now, the problem is when the prisoners were taken, invariably क्या होता है कि they are mistreated, ill-treated, abused, tortured, etc. All the negatives that can happen between one human and another human. Now, a thing like that is actually inhuman. Now, nobody is proud of it, especially not soldiers against another soldier of another country, maybe another country, maybe enemies, but a soldier remains a soldier at heart and by training.
People have been talking कि उनको कभी ओमान में देखा गया, कभी कोई चिट्ठी आई, इस तरह की खबरें लगातार आती रही हैं. Colonel Bhatia, do you think the soldiers, the defense personnel, they were used as bargaining chip? And now, before I conclude the show, what should be done at the national or international level to bring back? Though we are very late, but still, can something be done?
Ma'am, unlike us, in Pakistan, there is no democracy. It is the army, not even Air Force or Navy. It is the army. If army wants something, that will be done. If army says there are no Indian POWs with them, that is the last word. That means there are no Indian POWs with them. So if Pakistan denies whatever you do is not worth, out of whatever is the number, let's go this 54 number, which I do not agree. There are so many names. Jaspal is there, who was found in Oman. He is also from 15 Punjab. Major Varaj Battalion, Major Captain Sandhu's Battalion, who unfortunately I say is my coursemate of 15 Punjab, who's a POW. Now I also say if they are not surviving, if they are dead, give us their ashes. After doing the DNA test, they don't agree on to that. If they give us the ashes, the families can be put to the rest by finally ye ho gaya hai.
Absolutely. Thank you, Colonel Bhatia. Thank you, Colonel Rajan. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. तो आज के कार्यक्रम में फिलहाल इतना ही। आपसे फिर जुड़ूंगी एक नए मुद्दे के साथ जिसका सरोकार आपसे है, जनता से है, देश से है, जो कि सीधा सीधा गवर्नेंस से ताल्लुक रखता है। फिलहाल आप मुझे दें इजाजत। नमस्कार।